¿Entiendes cómo se escribe el ensayo para Cape el papel 3? En este video voy a explicar los temas en capítulo 1 y 2, la estructura del papel y tu ensayo. Después te doy un ejemplo de un ensayo bueno. Me llamo Camille Smith, pasé los 5 años ayudando a los estudiantes del Caribe a much of the CXC exams. Estoy alegre de que has unido a la comunidad, porque hoy en el Caribe, cuando ayudando apoyo académica, yo, Link Genius. Okay, as I said, the contents of this video will be in English, so thank me now. But hey, we're going first into talking about the themes and the related texts that you'd have for not module, but units 1 and 2, whether you're, but this video is centered around paper 3 and how to write the essay, particularly for section B. So I will not be going through anything related to section A in this video. Alright, so for unit 1, the first theme is La Juventud, which is about youth, right? And the text that they have given for you to read is Felices Dias Tío Sergio, and also La Casa en Mango Street. I believe when I was in high school I read La Casa en Mango Street. Yeah, but you don't read both. Usually your teacher chooses and you'll just go through one of these texts for the term. In terms of the second theme that is in unit 1, it is El Individuo y la Sociedad, and la sociedad, that's like the person or the individual and the society. And I'm very sorry if I'm not giving you direct like machine translations. I'll give you human translations. I'll give you the context around what some of these things mean instead of like direct translations. So and that's just because like sometimes I just can't give the direct translations. Like I get the meaning, but I can't give you like direct translations. But I'm stop rambling. So the text for this particular theme are como agua para chocolate y bodas de sangre, right? So again, you read one of the texts. You don't read both. You do not read both. In terms of unit 2, I can't remember which one of these I read actually. I know I read La Casa en Mango Street for sure. As for unit 2, right? Unit 2, if you're doing unit 2 Cape Spanish, the first theme is El Mundo Moderno, which is the modern world, and you have the text Cuentos de Eva Luna by Isabel Allende. This is what I read, and you don't read all the stories. This is a collection of short stories, so you don't read all the stories. CXC has actually prescribed that for that line went way out further than it should have. So prescribed, why do I say prescribed? But CXC has outlined that you should read Dos Palabras, which is 2 words, palabras. Also La Mujer del Juez, so the judge's woman, del juez. I remember this story. I feel like this was the one where she was in the road. The woman was in the road naked. I swear it gets crazy in some of these books. Then Un Camino hacia el Norte. So Camino hacia el Norte. So it's like a walk north, northward or to the north. El Palacio Imaginado, imaginary palace. I must stop translating these things. And De Barro Estamos Hechos. So these are the stories that you would read from if your class decides to do Cuentos de Eva Luna. So Estamos Hechos. If y'all decide to do Fatima de los Naufragios, then you will read these stories. So the same title, so título mismo, Fátima de los Naufragios. Pretend that I write pretty. And I keep forgetting that I shouldn't be writing so far. Give me a second. Let me just make these smaller because I need to take into consideration. Let's pretend. I'll just rewrite that actually. Take into consideration my face, my video. So Fatima, yeah. Anyways, La Piel, I've never read any of these. Marcelinda, El vuelo de la mariposa, desayuno de trabajo, and El farero. Should I write all of these? So, okay, this is vuelo de la mariposa, butterfly. Desayuno de trabajo, desayuno de trabajo, and el último? Shouldn't be writing there either. I'll write over here. El farero. So those from those unit 2 texts, right? Now, if you are for the second theme, el compromiso político y social, the texts are El reino de este mundo and El coronel no tiene quien le escribe. Yeah. El coronel no tiene quien le escribe. And, or it's escriba. Look at me. So El coronel no tiene quien le escriba. That makes a lot more sense. And I think I read this one. But anyways, now that you got the text, as I said, I read Cuentos de Eva Luna. I read El Coronel no tiene quien le escriba, and I also read La Casa en Mango Street. So I believe 2 were from Unit 1, 2 were from Unit 2, and 1 from Unit 1. But anyways, you write the essay on one of these, so I just say choose whichever one you like best. And that leads me to talking about the paper structure in terms of time, word limit, the requirements, what you're allowed to carry into the exam room, what you're not allowed to carry, right? So in terms of time, the complete paper is 2 hours, which means you have 2 hours to do both section A and section B, right? You're going to get 8 questions in total, but you're only required to do only 2 questions. So from section A, you'll choose 1 question, so 1 literary passage that they'll give you to read, and of course answer the questions based on that. But I won't stress that because this is not about section A. But for section B, you'll be given 4 essay questions, 2 from each of the themes, right? And you're required to choose 1. Don't really matter which one, whichever one you think you could answer the best, right? And so you'll be required to do 1 question from section B and 1 question from section A. Going forward, we're only going to be talking about section B, which is the essay. You have a word limit of 450 to 500 words, and you're advised not to go over. It's fine if you write less than 500, but do not go over 500. In terms of the requirements, you're required to write your essay in English. So write your essay in English. However, if you're encouraged to do so, if you're including any quotes or citations from the text, that should be done in Spanish. Hence, that's why you are allowed to bring 1, a Spanish-English dictionary. They are very generous, I believe, with this. So Spanish-English dictionary. and you are also not required, but you're also allowed to bring one of the texts or the storybooks with you. However, there's a contingency or constraint. You shouldn't have heavy annotations in the book, right? So I'll just put storybook. I'll just put storybook because I don't even know what these things are called. Neither in English, Spanish, nor Chinese. I don't know. Storybook. So you're allowed to bring one of them with you, and it shouldn't be heavily annotated. So please keep that in mind. Now, in terms of mark scheme and where you're earning marks, you're being marked on your knowledge and understanding, your application of the knowledge, and the organization of the information. For knowledge and understanding, you're given 16 marks, and this really evaluates how well you've understood the text that you've read. And of course, you have to read it before the day of the exam, please. Usually you do this in class. I don't know how they do it at your school, but usually we did it in class. We read the text and we just discussed some points from what we're thinking, like themes and stuff, as it relates to whichever theme is taken from the book. So it's just basically how well do you understand what you've read in Spanish, right? And if you understand what's happening in the story and what everything means. So that's what knowledge and understanding is. Now, application of knowledge is how well you can actually relate the themes and use quotes from the text in your essay to support your point, and you're given 9 marks for that, right? And so if you can properly apply the quotes to your point and they're relevant, then that's how they judge application of knowledge. As for organization of the information, you're given 7 marks for that, and that's basically how well you have organized your essay, right? So in total, that should be 32 marks for your essay, right? That's how you get marks. And that, since I've actually spoken about organization of the information and left that for last, I can now talk about the structure of the essay and how you want to go about doing that. So I'm going to show you example of how I did mine, and of course remember the full essay is in the description box, linked on my website in the description box below, where I'm going to walk you through the major important parts or the important bits of your essay. So every essay or a 5-point structure essay, the standard 5-point structure essay, has these parts: an introduction, your body, right? And of course you'd have each body paragraph is dedicated to a single point. You don't want to mix your points in different body paragraphs. So essentially each body paragraph should have one main idea, and finally a conclusion, right? So in this, it says write an essay, and again it's stressing in English, please, using 450 to 500 words on the following themes. They've given you the themes, they've listed them actually, they've separated it. For example, la juventud, and so unit 1 is el individuo y la sociedad, so you'd have la juventud and 2 essay questions or dos preguntas. Then you'd have el individuo y la sociedad and dos preguntas, 2 questions. Yeah, I just chose one of these. I don't really know. So you're going to choose whichever one you feel like you could answer the best. Yeah, so you must refer in detail to one named text. This text must not be the same as the one that you answered in section A. So that's another thing. If you know that you have your heart set on writing an essay using La Casa en Mango Street, right? If you're definitely going to do that, whatever you do in section A has to be from one of the other texts, right? I think that's why my teacher made us read 2, right? So I would have I think I did my section A on El Coronel, and my essay was on La Casa en Mango Street. Yeah, but yeah, again they said that the quotations, all quotations, must be cited in Spanish, en el español. So write essay in English, all quotes in Spanish, and we're going to get to that. The topic that I wrote my essay on This was one of my first essays that my teacher marked for me. It says young people are not as ignorant as adults believe, right? So we're going to start with la introducción, which is the introduction, and I advise 100 words or 100 palabras. I'm going to stop mixing English and Spanish as well. It started with a hook that says, there comes a point in every child's life where they grow up, right? Remember, the hook is used, a short statement that is used to grab your reader's attention, and you want to put your essay in a frame where they want to know what you have to say next. Your leading statements, right? Your leading statements are going to then go ahead to put your whole essay into context and to basically start putting or framing your argument, so that when we get to the thesis, it feels like we didn't jump from point A to point B, but rather the readers were brought on a journey from point A, which is your hook, to point B, which is your thesis, right? So the leading statements are there to give any background information that is necessary for your reader to understand where you're going with your essay, right? So I said, following up from at a point they must grow up, they grow not only physically but mentally as well. At this point, a child discovers that the world is not purely black and white, thus youth are not as ignorant as adults believe. This is actually something I do a lot in my essays, where I draw the question back into my essay so to ensure that I am on the right track. So then I introduce a text that I'm going to use, the text La Casa en Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. Shows a group of youngsters who know a lot more about the realities of life that adults believe. I think that should be than adults believe. That shouldn't be that adults believe. It's than adults believe. And then my thesis statement introduces the points that I'll be talking about in the essay. So I'll be talking about poverty, racism, intrafamilial problems such as abandonment. So that's 3 points that I'll be talking about in my essay, right? So in order to do that, I said children more often than not. Actually, this could just be often if you're going for brevity, are able to pick up on issues of poverty, racism, and intrafamilial problems such as abandonment. And I'm going to talk about these in the same order I've introduced them in the thesis statement. So I'm going to talk about poverty, then I'm going to talk about racism, and then intrafamilial problems, like abandonment. Then you want to go into your body paragraphs, okay? Your body paragraphs, remember, 1 paragraph per point, right? So this body paragraph will only talk about poverty, right? And I'll say, given your word limit, aim for about 110 words, right? 110 words, and you're using the same frame. So topic sentence, provide evidence, and this is often taken from the text, right? And this is where you'll cite in Spanish some quotes that will support your point. And then you provide an explanation by basically elaborating on all the evidence you've provided supports your point. So here, the topic sentence I've given introduces the idea of poverty. So I say young people are aware of their familial financial situations and are not naive to the facade their parents create. Then I said in the first vignette, La Casa en Mango Street, so that's the first story or the first chapter really. I think in the book themselves, you know how books, you have a book and you have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. These are vignettes in this book, I think. Yeah. So in the first vignette, La Casa en Mango Street, the narrator is told by her parents that the house on Mango Street is only temporary. Yeah. So I think in the book, I don't know. I always say I think, but I dare ask no. Am I allowed to say that? I probably need to block that. Okay, I need to watch my language. Okay. So Esperanza, right? Esperanza's parents told them that, hey, that house here we have on Mango Street, we ain't staying here for long, it's just temporary. But Esperanza tend to liken that whole story as like bedtime stories. She says it's bedtime stories, like it's simply bedtime stories. It's just stories her parents tell her before she goes to bed, right? Because she knows that she knows the family's familiar situation. There's no way they're going to move out. There's no way they're going to afford a new house, much less move out of Mango Street, right? And I use the quote, como yo sé cómo son estas cosas. This here is but I know how these things are. That's what I'm saying. I know how these things are. It is what it is type of vibe, right? She knows that, hey, them said this, but it's not really going to go like that. So I go ahead to explain that the narrator's eyes are opened. I could say opened instead of opened up. Why? Look at me and my English. Opened to the reality of poverty. Opened up is fine, but for brevity, conciseness, I could have just said open. She implies resignation about the way life typically plays out. She yearns for better, however realizes that better would not come through her parents' words, and this should be parents apostrophe S. Apostrophe. So S then apostrophe, so the other way around. Anyways, so that's how you want to approach your main body paragraph. And you want to do this for any other points that you have. So I think the next point that I would talk about would be racism. The point I used was Cassie's family moving out of Mango Street because people like Esperanza were moving in. Yeah, that's kind of shady. Then the next point would be abandonment. So there was this woman who has like 5 kids. I don't remember the story exactly, but she has like 5 kids, and the father left, and she doesn't really have any money to take care of them. The children are menaces, stuff like that. Then you want to, if you want to, and I highly suggest this, introduce a counter argument. I think in my essay I used the nanny for my counter argument, where the kids were talking about clothes and naming them by their scientific names, but Nenny, being so simple-minded, so young, because she's young, thought they had baptismal names, so like Peter, Harry, stuff like that. So she started naming the clothes by names you'd give humans, which shows that, yeah, sometimes children are as ignorant as adults believe. So introduce a counter argument and then go into your conclusion. So for the conclusion, what you want to do is restate your thesis and then go over the main points. So I said, finally, at times children are not as ignorant as adults believe, as they are made aware of social issues such as racism, familial financial problems, among other familial issues such as parental neglect and abandonment. However, there are instances, and this is where I actually just give our overall statement as well, round-up key statement, overall key statement, where I say, however, there are instances where a child has not matured enough mentally to take note of these issues, and that would have been supported through my analysis of Nenny, right? So that's how you want to approach your essay. So conclusion should be about 50 words, no more than that, less but no more. And I'm thinking of doing book club where I go through like chapters, themes and stuff in these books. So let me know what you're thinking about for content in terms of this. And yeah. Gracias por ver este video y usarlo. Si te resulta útil, considera suscribirte y, como siempre, mira otro video.